This is Snow by Dale Bailey. They took shelter outside of Boulder in a cookie-cutter subdivision that had seen better days. 5 or 6 floor plans, Dave Cairns figured. Brick facades and tan siding, crumbling streets and blank cul-de-sacs. No place you'd want to live. By then, Felicia had passed out from the pain. The snow beyond the windshield of Lannion's black Yukon had thickened into an impenetrable white blur. It had been a spectacular run of bad luck, starting with the first news of the virus via the telephone radio on the Yukon. 3 days of disease vectors and infection rates, symptoms and speculation. Calm voices gave way to anxious ones. Anxious ones succumbed to panic. The last they heard was the sound of a commentator retching. Then flat silence. Nothing at all the length of that band. NPR, CNN, the outlaw country station. Suddenly, no one was anxious to go home. None of them. Not Cairns and Felicia, not Lanyon or his new girlfriend Natalie, lithe and blonde and empty-headed as the last player in his rotating cast of female companions. On the third day of the catastrophe, when it became clear that humanity just might be toast, they'd powwowed around a fire between the tents, passing hand to hand the last of the primo dope Lanyon had procured for the trip. Lanyon always insisted on the best: tents and sleeping bags that could weather a winter on the Ross Ice Shelf, a high-end water filtration system, a portable gas stove with more bells and whistles than the full-size one Cairns and Felicia used at home. Even a Benelli RI semi-automatic hunting rifle, just in case, Lanyon had said. The most remote location as well, somewhere 2,000 feet above Boulder, where the early November deciduous trees began to give way to pinyon pine and Rocky Mountain juniper. 0 cell phone reception. By that time, there was nobody left to call. Or anyway, none of them cared to make the descent and see. The broadcasts had started calling it the Red Death by then. Cairns appreciated the illusion. Airborne, an incubation period of less than 24 hours, blood leaking from your eyes, your nostrils, your pores, and toward the end, 12 hours if you were lucky, another 24 if you weren't, gushing from your mouth with every cough. No thank yous all around. Safe enough at 7,500 feet, at least for the time being. Time being, Lanyon insisted, lasting at least through the winter and maybe longer. We have maybe 2 weeks' worth of food, Cairns protested. We'll scout out a cabin and hunker down for the duration, Lanyon said. If we have to, we'll hunt. There was that, at least. Lanyon was a master with the Benelli. They wouldn't starve, and Cairns didn't have any more desire to contract the Red Death than the rest of them. All had been going according to plan. Inside a week, they'd located a summer cabin, complete with a larder of canned goods, and started gathering wood for the stove. Then Felicia had fallen. A single bad step on a bed of loose scree, and that had been it for the plan. When Cairns cut her jeans away, he saw that the leg had broken at the shin. Yellow bone jutted through the flesh. Blood was everywhere. Felicia screamed when Lanyon set the bone, yanking it back into true, or something close to true, splitting it with a couple of backpack poles, binding the entire bloody mess with a bandage they found in a first aid kit under the sink. The bandage had soaked through almost immediately. Cairns, holding her hand, thought for the first time in half a dozen years of their wedding, the way she'd looked in her dress and the way he'd felt inside, like the luckiest man on the planet. Luck. It all turned sour on them. I'm taking her down first thing in the morning, he told Lanyon. What for? You heard the radio. You want to die too? Natalie asked. I don't want her to die, Cairns said. That was the point. Without help, she was doomed. Anybody could see that. There wasn't a hell of a lot any of them could do on their own. A venture capitalist and a college English professor and something else, Broncos cheerleader maybe, who knew what Natalie did. Even if it's as bad as we think it is down there, he added, we can still find a pharmacy, antibiotics, whatever. You think there's any chance her leg isn't going to get infected? Grim-faced, Lanyon had turned away. I think it's a bad idea. You have a better one? How are you going to get down, Dave? You planning to use the Yukon? Cairns laughed in disbelief. I can't believe you'd even say that. What? Lanyon said, as if he didn't know. You were the best man at my wedding. Hell, you introduced me to Felicia. We have to think of ourselves now, Natalie said. Fuck you, Natalie, Karen said. That'd be the end of the conversation. He was wakeful most of the night that followed. Felicia was feverish. Am I going to die, Dave? She'd asked in one of her lucid moments. Of course not, he'd responded, the lie cleaving his heart. Lanyon woke him at dawn. They stood shivering on the porch of the cabin and watched clouds mass among the peaks. The temperature had plunged overnight. The air smelled like snow. You win, Lanyon said. We'll go down to Boulder. The snow caught them while they were winding down the rutted track from the cabin, big lazy flakes sifting through the barren trees to deliquesce on the Yukon's acres of windshield. Nothing to worry about, Karen's thought in the back seat, cradling Felicia's head in his lap. But the temperature, visible in digital blue on the dash, continued to plummet. 25, 15, 10. By the time they hit paved road, a good hour and a half from the cabin, and itself a narrow serpentine stretch of crumbling asphalt, the weather had gotten serious. The wipers carved slanting parabolas in the snow. Beyond the windows, the road had receded into a white haze. Lanyon hunched closer to the wheel. They crept along, pausing now and again to inch around an abandoned vehicle. We should have stayed where we were, Natalie said, and the silence that followed seemed like assent. But it was too late to turn back now. Finally, the road widened into a 4-lane highway, clogged with vehicles. They plowed onward anyway, weaving drunkenly among the cars. By the time they reached the outskirts of Boulder, the headlights stabbed maybe 15 feet into the swirling snow. I can't see a thing, Lanyon said. They turned aside into surface streets, finding their way at last into the decaying subdivision. They picked a house at random, a rancher with a brick facade and an empty cul-de-sac. The conventions of civilization held. Lanyon and Karen scouted it out while the women waited in the Yukon. They knocked, shouting, but no one came. Finally, they tested the door. It had been left unlocked. The owner had departed in a hurry, Karen figured, fleeing the contagion. Wondered if they'd passed them dead somewhere on the highway, if they'd made it into the higher altitudes in time. The house itself was empty. Maybe they'd gotten lucky. Maybe the frigid air would kill the virus before it could kill them. Maybe, Terence thought. Maybe. They settled Felicia on the sectional sofa in the great room before the unblinking eye of the oversized flat screen. Afterward, they searched the place more thoroughly, dosing Felicia with the amoxicillin and the oxycodone they found in the medicine cabinet. Then the food in the pantry, tools neatly racked in the empty garage, a loaded pistol on a bedside table. Natalie tucked it into the belt of her jeans. Karen's flipped light switches, adjusting the thermostat, flicked on the television. Nothing. How quickly it all fell apart. They hunched around a portable radio instead, white noise all across the dial. Welcome to the end of the world, it said. Not with a bang, but a whimper. The snow kept coming, gusts of it, obscuring everything a dozen feet beyond the windows, then unveiling it in quick flashes, the blurred limb of a naked tree, the shadow of the Yukon at the curb. Karen stood at the window as night fell, wondering what he'd expected to find. A hospital? A doctor? The hospitals must have been overwhelmed from the start, the doctors first to go. The street lights snapped alight, solar-charged batteries, the death throes of the world he'd grown up in. They illuminated clouds of billowing white that in other circumstances Karen's would have found beautiful. Cold groped at the window. He turned away. Lanyon and Natalie had scrounged a handful of tea-light candles. By their flickering luminescence, the great room took on a cathedral air. Darkness encroached from the corners and gathered in shrouds at the ceiling. They ate pork and beans, warmed over the camp stove, spread their sleeping bags on the carpet, and talked. Same goddamn conversation they'd had for days now. Surely we're not the only ones, and how many, and where, and what if? We're probably already dying, Natalie said, turning a baleful eye on Karen's. Well, we're down here now, she said. What's your plan, Einstein? I don't have a plan. I didn't figure on the snow. You didn't figure on a lot of things. Cut it out, Lanyon said. We didn't have to do this, Cliff, Natalie said. What did you expect me to do? I've known Felicia for years. I've known Dave longer. It's not like we had access to weather reports. No, Karen thought. There was another thing gone with the old world. Just like that, everything evaporated. By then the cold had become black, physical. Cairns got to his feet. He tucked Felicia's sleeping bag into the crevices of the sofa. She moaned. Her eyes fluttered. She reached for his hand. Cairns shook 2 oxycodone out of the bottle. These will help you sleep. Will you stay with me, Dave? All the way to the end, he thought. And he knew then that at some level, if only half consciously, he accepted what he had known in his heart back at the cabin. She was gone. She'd been gone the moment she'd slipped on that bed of scree. And he'd laughed. He remembered that, too. Whoops, he'd said, and she'd said, I'm hurt, Dave. Her voice plaintive, frightened, tight with agony. He'd never heard her use that voice in 17 years of marriage. He knew then that she was beyond help. There was no help to be had. Lanyon had surrendered the Yukon all the same, and they had knocked on the door before barging into this house, just as they had knocked on the door of the summer cabin in the mountains before that. How long, he wondered, before they reverted to savagery? Will you stay with me, Dave? She said. Of course. He slid into his sleeping bag. They held hands by candlelight until the oxycodone hit her and her fingers went limp. He tucked her arm under her sleeping bag. He could smell the wound, already separating with infection, and lay back. The last of the tea lights burned out. Cairns glanced at the luminescent dial of his watch, 9:30. The streetlight's spectral blue glow suffused the air. He closed his eyes, but sleep eluded him. Endless loop unspooled against the dark screens of his eyelids. Felicia's expression as the earth slipped out from under her feet. His helpless whoop of laughter. I'm hurt, Dave. He opened his eyes. You awake, Cliff? He said. Yeah. You think Natalie's right? We're all going to wind up coughing up blood in 24 hours or so? I don't know. Maybe the snow, Karen said. Maybe the cold has killed the virus. Maybe. They were silent. One way or the other, we'll find out, I guess, Lanyon said. Snow ticked at the windows like fingernails. Let me in. Let me in. About the Yukon, Karen said. It doesn't matter, Dave. You'd have done the same for me. Would he? Karen wondered. He liked to think so. I'm sorry I was an asshole, Lanyon said. It doesn't matter. Felicia's going to be okay. Sure she is. I know. Cairns gazed across the room at the shadowy mound of the other man in his sleeping bag. What do you figure happened? Hell, I don't know. You heard the radio as well as I did. Something got loose from a military lab. Terrorists. Maybe just a mutation. Ebola, something like that. Another conversation they'd had a dozen times. It was like picking a scab. A long time passed. Cairns didn't know how long it was. Doesn't matter, I guess, he said, adrift between sleep and waking. Not anymore, Lanyon said. The words chased Cairns down a dark hole into sleep. Lanyon woke him into that same unearthly blue light. For a moment, Cairns didn't know where he was. Only that strange undersea radiance, a sense of time and place out of joint, a chill undertow of anxiety. It all came flooding back. The plague, Felicia's fall, the blizzard. Lanyon's expression echoed his unease. Get up, he said. What's going on? Just get up. Cairns followed him to the window. Natalie crouched there, gazing out into the sheets of blowing snow. She held a pistol in one hand. What is it? He whispered. There's something in the snow, she said. What? I heard it. It woke me up. You hear anything, Cliff? Lanyon shrugged. Wind tore at the house, rattling gutters. Cairns peered into the snow, but if there was anything out there, he couldn't see it. He couldn't see anything but a world gone white. The street lamp loomed above them, a bulb of fuzzy blue light untethered from the earth. Heard what? He asked. I don't know. It woke me. Something in the snow. The wind, Karen said. It sounded like it was alive. Listen to a blow out there. You could hear anything in that. Brain, he hesitated. What? Natalie said. All I'm saying is it's easy enough to imagine something like that. Voices in the wind. Shapes in the snow. Natalie's breath fogged the window. I didn't imagine anything. Look, he said, it's late. We're all tired. You could have imagined something. That's all I'm saying. I said I didn't imagine it. And then, as though the very words had summoned it into being, a thin shriek carved the wind. Alien, predatory, unearthly as the cry of a hunting raptor. The snow muffled it, made it hard to track how far away it was, but it was closer than Karen's wanted it to be. It held for a moment, wavering, and dropped away. Heartbeat passed, then two, and came an answering cry farther away. Karen swallowed hard, put his back to the wall, and slid to the floor. He pulled his knees up, dropped his head between them. He could feel the cold radiating from the window, shivering erect the tiny hairs on his neck. He looked up. His breath unfurled in the gloom. They were both watching him, Lanyon and Natalie. "It's the wind," he said, hating himself as he said it, hating this new weakness he'd discovered in himself, this inability to face what in his heart he knew to be true. Came a third cry then, still farther away. "Jesus," Lanyon said. "They're surrounding us," Natalie said. "There?" Karen said. "There? Who the hell do you think could be out there in that?" Natalie turned and met his gaze. "I don't know," she said. They checked the house, throwing deadbolts, locking interior doors and windows. Karen's didn't get the windows. You wanted to get inside bad enough, you just broke the glass. But there was something comforting in sliding a little tongue into its groove all the same. Symbolic barriers, like cavemen drawing circles of fire against the night. As for sleep, forget it. He leaned against the sofa, draped in his sleeping bag, envying Felicia the oblivion of the oxycodone. Her skin was hot to the touch, greasy with perspiration. He could smell, or imagined he could smell, the putrescent wound, the inadequate dressing soaked with gore. Across the room sat Lanyon, the Benelli flat across his legs. At the window, her back propped against the wall, Natalie cradling the pistol in her lap. Karen felt naked with just the hunting knife at his belt. The snow kept coming, slanting down past the street light, painting the room with that strange swimming light. Lanyon's face looked blue and cold, like the face of a dead man. Natalie's, too. He didn't even want to think about Felicia, burning up under the covers, sweating out the fever of the infection. "We should look at her leg," he said. "And do what?" Natalie responded, and what could he say to that, because there was nothing to do. Cairns knew that as well as anyone. He felt compelled in his impotence to do something, anything, even if it was just stripping back the sleeping bag and staring at the wound, stinking and inflamed, imperfectly splinted, oozing blood and yellow pus. "Just keep doling out those drugs," Lanyon said. Cairns knew he meant the oxycodone, not the amoxicillin, which couldn't touch an infection of this magnitude, however much he prayed. He was not a praying man. He couldn't help recalling his mother, dying in agony from bone cancer, the narrow hospital room stinking of antiseptic with its single forlorn window, the doctor, a hulking Greek, quick to anger, who spoke in heavily accented English. "We're into pain management now," he'd said. "How much is left?" Natalie said. Cairns realized that he'd been turning the prescription bottle in his hands. 10, maybe 15 pills. "Not enough," she said. "I don't think it's enough." A bright fuse of hatred for her burned through him, for giving voice to thoughts he could barely acknowledge as his own. After that, silence. Corin's eyes were grainy with exhaustion, yet he could not sleep. None of them could sleep. Unspeaking, they listened for voices in the storm. At 2, they came. 1, 2, 3 metallic screeches in the wind. Lanyon took one window, Natalie the other, lifting her pistol. Karen stayed with Felicia. She was stirring now, coming out of her oxycodone haze. "What is it?" she said. "Nothing. It's nothing." But it was something. "There," Natalie said, but she needn't have said it at all. Even from his place by the sofa, Karen saw it. A blue shadow darting past the window, no more than a blur, 7 feet long or longer, horizontal to the earth, tall, lashing, faster than anything that size had any right to be, faster than anything human. There and gone again, obscured by a veil of blowing snow. Karen's own words mocked him. Imagination. Shapes in the snow. He thought of that icy tapping like fingernails at the window. "Let me in." Felicia said, "Dave." "What is it, Dave?" "It's nothing," he said. Silence prevailed, shifting veils of snow. "What the hell was that thing?" Lanyon said. And Natalie from her window. "Let's play a game." Nobody said a word. "The game is called What If," she said. What are you talking about? Karen said. What if you were an alien species? Oh, come on, Karen said, but Lanyon was grim and silent. Way ahead of us technologically, capable of travel between stars. This is crazy, Dave, Felicia said. What is she talking about? Nothing. It's nothing. What if you wanted to clear a planet for colonization? You read too much science fiction. Shut the hell up, Dave, Lanyon said. We're intelligent. They would try to. We're vermin, Natalie said. What I would do, I would engineer some kind of virus, wipe out 99% of the vermin, like fumigating a fucking house. And then, Lanyon said, then I'd send in the ground troops to mop up. Karen snorted. Dave, it's craziness, that's all, he said. He said, here, these will help you sleep. Nothing then. Nothing but wind and snow, the sound of silence in their room. After a time, they resumed their posts on the floor. Felicia, weeping, lapsed back into drugged sleep. We're going to have to get to the Yukon, Natalie said. We can't see a fucking thing out there, Karen said. At first light. Maybe the snow will stop by then. If it doesn't, Lanyon said, we make a run for it. What about Felicia? Karen said. What about her? Karen looked at his watch. It was almost 3 o'clock. He must have dozed, for he came awake abruptly, jarred from sleep by a distant thud. A dream, he thought, his pulse hammering. Must have been a dream. A nightmare inside this nightmare of dark and endless snow, of a plague-ravaged world and Felicia dying in agony. But it was no dream. Lanyon and Natalie had heard it too. They were already up, their weapons raised, even as he stumbled to his feet, shedding like water the sleeping bags across his shoulders. It came again. A thump against the back of the house, muffled by snow in the intervening rooms. What is it? Felicia said, her voice drowsy with oxycodone. Nothing, he said. It was nothing. A branch must have fallen. That was no branch, Natalie said, not unless it fell twice. And twice more after that. 2 quick blows, and a third, then silence. Submarine hush so deep and pervasive, Karen could hear the boom of his heart. Maybe a tree came down. You know better, Lanyon said. Dave, I'm scared, Felicia whispered. We're all scared, Natalie said. Felicia began softly to weep. Shut her the fuck up, Natalie said. Natalie, I said shut her up. It hurts, Felicia said. I'm afraid. Karen knelt by the sectional and kissed her chill lips. Her breath bloomed in the cold air, sweet with a stink of infection. Didn't think he'd ever loved her more in his life than he did at that moment. There's nothing to be afraid of, he whispered, wiping away her tears with the ball of his thumb. It's just the wind. But even she was past believing him, for the wind had died. The snow fell soft and straight through the air. The streetlight was a blue halo against the infinite blackness of space. Natalie's game came back to Karen's. What if? And a dark surf broke and receded across the shingles of his heart. Felicia took his hand and squeezed his fingers weakly. Just don't leave me here, she said. Don't leave me here to die. Never, he said. The glitter of shattering glass splintered the air. Felicia screamed, a short, sharp bark of terror. Shut her up, Natalie snapped. In the silence that followed, the shifting purple shadow of the great room with its sectional sofa, the gray rectangle of the flat screen, their sleeping bags like the shucked skins of enormous snakes upon the floor, Karen's heard someone, something. Let's play a game. The game is called What If? Test the privacy lock of a back bedroom. Slow turn to either side. Click, click. Silence. Felicia whimpered. Karen's blew a cloud of vapor into the still air. He clouded Felicia's fingers. He remembered a time when they had made hasty love in the bathroom at a friend's cocktail party, half drunk, mad with passion for each other. The memory came to him with pristine clarity. He felt tears upon his cheeks, and still the silence held. Lanyon snapped off the safety of the Benelli. Natalie put her back to the foyer wall, reached out, flipped the deadbolt of the front door. She pushed it a few inches ajar. Snow dusted the threshold. The Yukon locked? She whispered. No. Once again the thing tested the lock. Dave, don't leave me. Natalie. She froze him with a glance. God help him, he didn't want to die. He choked back a sob. They had wanted children. They had tried for them. In vitro, the whole 9 yards. I won't leave you, he whispered. Then the privacy lock snapped, popping like a firecracker. The door banged back. Something came, hurtling down the hallway. Something big, hunched over the floor. And God shedding pieces of itself. 1, 2, 3, as it burst into the room. Guns spat bright tongues of fire, barrage of deafening explosions. The impact flung the thing backward, but the pieces, 2 or 3 foot lengths of lump-pumping fury, kept coming. Snapping the Benelli from target to target, Lanyon took 2 of them down. Natalie stopped the third one not 3 feet from Karen's throat. It rolled on the floor, curving needle teeth snapping, leathery hide gleaming in the snow-blown light, and was still. Those alien cries echoed in the darkness. Time to go, Natalie said. Lanyon moved to the door. Felicia clutched Karen's hand, seizing him with a tensile strength he did not know she still possessed. The cocktail party flashed through his mind. They had wanted children. Felicia, Karen said, help me. No time, Natalie said. Lanyon. I'm sorry, Dave. The moment hung. Karen wrenched his hand away. Time to go, Natalie said again. We can't wait. You have to decide. She ducked into the night. A moment later, Lanyon followed. Glass shattered at the back of the house. 1 window, 2 windows, 3. Don't leave me, Dave, Felicia sobbed. Don't leave me. Outside, the Yukon roared to life. Dave, Felicia said, I'm scared. Shh, he said, brushing closed her eyelids with his fingers. Never. I'll never leave you. I love you. He bent to press his lips to hers. His fingers fumbled at his belt. They closed around the blade. A moment later, he was running for the Yukon.